Welcome to the show tonight. Thanks for tuning in. We are live here on the Tony Gomez Show. And tonight I've got Carl Fulli, singer of our old school Bay Area thrash band Epidemic, Metal Blade recording artist Epidemic. And also he was there from the beginning of Killing Culture. But right now he's in the house because we're going to be talking about his new project, Bleeding Edge. Hell yeah. And so, Carl, how's it going tonight, sir?
Going well, thank you.
Good, man. You know, I was able to break the ice with Bleeding Edge a couple of weeks ago with Scott, and he kind of gave me a lot of the beef of Bleeding Edge, but nothing gets it like coming straight from you because this is all your project, right?
Yeah. I had so I was in Epidemic, and I'd been out of music for almost 30 years. And doing nothing. And I just, my dad had died a couple years ago, and I was just like, it makes you think about all your life, and you don't want to live with regrets. And I thought, I want to make some music, before I get too old to even do this kind of thing and yelling my ass off, right?
Yeah.
So I thought, I challenged myself. I thought, I'm going to write 4 songs, and I want to put it out as an EP, and I want to do it all myself. Because I always contributed both lyrics and music to Epidemic, but I only ever wrote one song myself, and that was like a minute and a half, and had about 3 riffs in it. And the way I used to write back in the day was I'd have something in my head, and I would figure out what the notes were on guitar, and then I would go into practice and show the guys and say, hey, here's the notes on the guitar, and I would hum it out, and then they would play it. And that's how I wrote stuff. So this time it was a bit different. So using modern technology really, really worked out. So calling Scott, calling him up because I've been friends with Scott since like 88. And we've done, some things together and have always been, close friends.
Yeah.
So, I just know him. He's like a brother. So it's like, dude, can you help me out with this? And he said, absolutely. And he took the ball and ran with it as far as getting me going with bringing in Lennon and bringing in Kevy and certainly bringing in Juan. He was very big, and this wouldn't have happened without him for sure.
That is so awesome, man. I could tell the one thing I really got out of the conversation I had with Scott was all the great friendships and relationships that he's been able to build up over this, almost 4 decades of fucking jamming in this fucking in the metal world, and through all these connections, he's got the, Tales of Aetherion together. He's got this going on with you. He had his own baby, Killing Culture. He's such he's an overachiever. He knows what he wants. He's then producing work for you guys in Exit Paradise. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep. He helped us with that. Yeah. Cause so Epidemic, when we started, we did 3 demos, and we did it at a local studio, in Palo Alto in the Bay Area. And, the sound kind of changed a little bit over the 3 demos, but our debut album Decameron sounded a lot like the 3rd demo, even though, there was a solid, year in between recording. And so it was kind of interesting. And after we were done with that, we kind of thought, we need a bit of a change here. We need somebody to help us out, kind of take this a little bit further. And Exit Paradise definitely is a different sounding album than Decameron. And even the approach to songwriting was a little bit different, just because it was a weird time, 94 when it came out, we were writing that stuff in 93. And then of course the beginning of 94, and it just it was very, very, very strange with the whole grunge thing coming up. So things were already changing, and it was, and then Pantera was coming up, and so that whole groove metal thing was happening. So it was definitely an odd time for us to have actually gotten signed and put out albums in 92 and 94 when those 2 albums came out. So but Scott helped us out with Exit Paradise, and I think he gave us a very killer and heavy guitar tone. That was critical for us because we really were like, hey, we need to beef up the guitars a little bit more.
Yes, fuck yeah! And a perfect example is that song "Exit Paradise." That fucking heavy riff. Oh, dude, nice, slow, and heavy, and just you got what you're looking for right there.
Oh yeah, Absolutely,
yes.
absolutely.
There's a lot of great bangers on that album right there. And how did you and Scott meet?
I think it was, well, first off, just being in the scene and playing shows together. But
Okay.
we both opened for Slayer.
Wow.
So
Fuck yeah. Was
at the
that what the years of Wrecking Machine for him?
Yep. Scott was in Wrecking Machine. This was in 1988. I want to say that so the timeline's a little hard for me, just being that it's been like, 37, 38 years or whatever it's been now.
Yeah.
So, but I remember vividly, I met him briefly, but then I saw him at a show in Watsonville, which is down near past Santa Cruz, and there was some local show going on. We went down there and I saw him, and he was just, cool guy, totally cool. And then we ended up playing some shows together. And every time I saw him, it was just like, well, what's up, dude? And, that kind of thing. And he's obnoxious. I was super obnoxious back then. We both were like, fuck everybody else. Who gives a shit? Fuck you. That kind of thing. We didn't care. We were just up, it didn't matter. Of fact, he stood up for me one time. I'm not even going to get too much into this, and I'm not going to drop any names on this one, but I will say we were backstage and we were talking about a certain band's new album.
Yeah.
This is like 1989. And we were sitting backstage at a club, and this band was headlining, and it was a big deal. And the place was packed, and he and I were talking, and so-and-so's, woman was there and heard us kind of talking about the album and the new album. And, a lot of times, when you get albums, it's not immediate. And sometimes it is immediate, in this particular band, I really was just kind of like, it's okay. Yeah, whatever, and because I just said that, my mind, and that was minor, because I would actually say that band sucked if I didn't like them, which was unfair at the time. And it was part of me being a young and dumb guy, right? Immature at the time. Now if you told me about a band, I'd just be like, yeah, it doesn't work for me, that kind of thing.
Right.
But,
I get it. Yep.
But this lady took offense to it. And she says to Scott, she's like, "Are you friends with him?" And he goes, "Oh, Carl?" She goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "Fuck yeah. Yeah, he's my friend." And she's like, "Why?" And she just kind of shut up after that. And that was that. So, right there, I knew it's like, he's a stand-up dude, so I didn't have to worry about him, because I couldn't say anything that would ever bother him, offend him, or matter of fact, he and I were usually on the same page with most stuff.
I get it, man. I like that sense of humor. I really do, man.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. Having Scott on the show, man, it was very refreshing, because he doesn't, like he says, he has no filters, and he just just was able to share some great times, and I would have never the reality is always better than fiction, it never fucking ceases to amaze me, the great shit that happens out there. And that's why I love doing the podcast, because I get to hear some of these great stories from you. Hopefully here in a little bit, I'm going to be talking about the 80s scene, but I want to touch a little bit on what I really stood out on Exit Paradise, man, because I really loved it. And it really gets you by the balls, coming off of Void, and we get past the intro and Void kicks in and we're fucking kicking ass. Keeps going strong, man. I love Vulture as well. Vulture fucking hits hard.
Yep.
And Lament, man, you even throw some fucking grind in Lament. You got some fucking grind drums going on there, man. It's just very ahead of its time right there. Well, I think, from the Bay Area, there wasn't grind coming out, if I can remember at that time. That was more like overseas Napalm Death kind of shit.
Yeah, at that time, that was 94. There were some bands out doing that stuff in the Bay at that point. Just they hadn't really hit their stride yet. Like Exhumed was around then, right?
Yeah.
So they were around doing their thing, and there were some other bands doing it, and it was just they were just kind of like the next wave, because those guys are a few years younger than me, and so the rest of us. But yeah, there definitely were. It's just you didn't see a lot of that in the Bay in general. Like all the popular bands, you didn't have that, and we just did it a little bit. Like on Decameron, we did it on Tornado. There's some blast in that too, but yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, it wasn't super prevalent aside from a lot of the death metal guys, a lot of the death metal bands.
Yeah, absolutely, like man.
Napalm Deaths of the world and those grinding bands.
The heaviness of the riff, of the main riff, man, that comes in for the title track of Exit Paradise, man. That's fucking brutal. It's just, I love the creepiness. It's somewhat doomy in a way, but it's just fucking tight. And uh, what's your drummer's name on that album?
Bobby Cochran.
Bobby Cochran, man, he fucking lays down some killer drums, man. He doesn't overdo it. It's just solid, right on the money, and it just together between the guitars and that, man, it's just fucking super solid. And your vocals are always fucking, God, man, that's the epitome of a thrash metal vocalist, bro. You know, right there with fucking Zetro, dude. It's like fucking hard and just you can feel the like the anguish as you're fucking throwing those lines out there. And
it's
I
loud.
love it, man. It's just that's the heart and soul that thrash metal fucking fans love to hear, man.
I agree. I mean, I'm not one of those guys who are one of those soft vocalists. Like you get some guys who just kind of, they're just going, that kind of thing or what have you. It's just not very loud. They get the sound that they want. They're just not very loud. But when I do it, I am loud and I project.
Yes.
And so I've been told I'm one of the louder vocalists that some people have worked with.
Yes, and the power, dude. It is you bring the power.
Yeah. Well, you got to bring the emotion and the power behind it. The songs are energetic, they're heavy as fuck, and it just brings out that emotion and that, because it's a good way to let out your anger, right? Let out your frustrations. Yes. Life's hard, right? No matter what age you are, and so this actually was a great outlet for me because I could sit here and record these songs, at my leisure in my house. And that's the beauty of today's technology, right? Is you can do this stuff at home very, very inexpensively. If you've got a laptop, the digital audio workstation I use, which is Reaper, which Scott uses as well. I mean, that's a $60 buy, and cool. It works great. And so, and that's another thing that he helped me out with was making sure that I was recording properly, and exporting the files properly and sending them so that way we could get them over to Juan and get them mixed properly. So he was a big help with that. But it's just being able to let out that aggression. I mean, it feels good.
Fuck yeah.
As you
Whose
probably
idea
know,
was it?
Right?
Yes, it does. Fuck yeah. I've been singing since 91, but before that I was started out on drums back in 86. And so I was playing drums in a punk band called Aggravated Assault. Switched to a New York style hardcore band with like agnostic front, sick of it, all kind of shit. And I was playing drums. My singer got arrested for stealing a car, and I wrote all the lyrics. So I bought a headset mic and I started singing and playing drums at the same time.
Oh,
and then my guitar player, it was a 3-band band. My guitar player went to start the first death metal band here in Corpus called Malignancy. And they didn't have a singer. And I wanted to be with the cool guys. So I was like, dude, let me try out. Fuck yeah, well, come try out, dude. You know what's up? And so I tried out with Infected from Obituary's Cause of Death. Right. And I never fucking sang like that before. I was singing New York hardcore, but I wanted the gig. I fucking I started getting the John Tardy feel, and I got the gig. And so since 90, I've been doing it all. 10 years of straight death metal, 10 years of like another metalcore kind of Lamb of God-ish stuff from the 2000s. And then I did the past 15 years of fucking cover bands and Pantera tribute and AC/DC tribute. And now I'm back into the original stuff with Annihilator and Mother Band War Cult. I can't get enough, Carl. And my wife's had it up to here. Because there's always something going on. Shit, there's always something going on. And, in looking into your background, I know part of the reason why you kind of came out of the scene was because you focused on family for a while. Is that right?
Well, yeah, I was kind of disillusioned with the whole being in a band thing and the whole record company thing and putting your record out and that kind of stuff. I mean, none of us were under any delusions that we were going to make it big, right, and have a lot of money. But I think, the goal was like, hey, if we can at least just kind of support ourselves while we're in a band, then, that would be worth it. Right. Even if we're, it's just a subsistence level, we could do that. That would be cool. Right.
Yeah.
So we were under no delusions that it was going to be awesome. But I will tell you, when we did that tour with Cannibal Corpse and Unleashed in 1993 for the Decameron record, we were making $100 a night as a band.
Shit.
you know,
Damn.
and I mean, we all know $100 isn't worth crap now,
Right.
right? But it wasn't all that much better in '93, especially when you've
No
got five
kidding.
guys that got to eat. You need gas
Yes.
to get to the next town. And the only reason we were able to do that was because Unleashed used our backline.
Okay.
So they agreed to transport our gear throughout the tour and give us one hotel room every night.
Badass.
So that
Okay.
was the only way. So, and then, we had like a single box of shirts,
Uh-huh.
that we had. And I think, we were selling shirts. We were giving away demos and posters too. It's like, if you buy a
Yes.
shirt, you can have a poster and a demo too.
Fuck
To try
yes.
and make it worth their while, because of course, you go and, with Cannibal Corpse, they've got like all these shirts with all this crazy
Damn,
artwork.
right.
Unleashed had their thing, and here we are with our one little shirt, going, oh, look, it's our album cover. It was hard to compete with those
It's not a
guys, you know what I mean?
competition.
So but that's how we were able to survive doing that tour. And we actually came home with a little bit of money as a band, and we
Fuck.
nobody took any money. We
Yeah.
just left it for the band expenses. So but yeah, that was your typical scenario that almost every band has encountered. We had van breaking down, things like that.
Oh fuck.
All of that throughout. But yeah, we were able to survive that just for that reason. So
Yes.
but when we got home, then we went, we kicked one of our guitar players out of the band, which in retrospect may or may not have been a good idea. I think when you reflect back on some of those things, you go, I don't know if that was such a great idea, but it changed the dynamic of the band, which also kind of changed our approach to the next album and why the next album sounded a little bit different, bringing Scott on and all of that. And then shortly after, the album was released, like a month, couple months, 3 months, our drummer decided to leave. And at that point I was like, okay, I've kind of had enough at this point, because I felt like, we never earned a dime personally. Like none of us ever walked away from any gig or anything, with any money. We never put money in our pocket and going, hey, this was a nice payday. It never happened. Any money that we did make, we always tried to put it back into the band, so we didn't have to put as much money out of our pockets, because, the whole pay to play scenario where they make, selling tickets, you got to sell 100 tickets if you want to play the gig, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Like, so for instance, like when we played with Slayer, I can't remember, I'd have to go back and look at the dates, but we played with Exodus and we played with Slayer in 1988 at the at the Mountain View Theater. And I can't remember, I want to say the Slayer gig came up first.
Okay.
And I walked, because I used on my way home from work. By the way, I was 18 at the time that we played that gig, and I would go by I got to know the promoter at the Mountain View Theater, and when I was coming home from work, because I got off work early, I got off at like 3:30 in the afternoon, so I'd show up around 4 and just see the door open. I'd walk in and say, hey Chuck, what's happening? Because Chuck was this little guy who was the promoter, and he liked me because I made friends with him, which was really good for us, because I'd say, look, I go, any gigs you got coming, anybody, we'll bring the people, we'll sell the tickets, we'll make it happen. And so he goes, hey, by the way, I think I've got Slayer. And I said, are you shitting me? He goes, yeah. I go, we're there, dude. We'll do whatever we need to do. He goes, I'm going to need you to prepay for the tickets. And I was like, oh, and so now I think it was Exodus at first, because he said it was Exodus. And this is why I'm thinking, because they were $15 tickets in 1988. And he goes, I'm going to need you to prepay for them. So that's $1,500.
Shit. Yeah.
And I was like, and I just graduated, and so I had a little graduation money, and I was like, I got you. I'll take care of it. Let me know, and I'll handle it. And so luckily, pretty easy to sell out those tickets, especially back then. Exodus put on a great show. They always have. And it was like everybody would show up to every show anyway. So it was a no-brainer. Yeah, here's the $1,500. We sold all the tickets. I got all my money back. Then when Slayer rolled around, it was about a month later or so. He said, I think I got Slayer. One of those days I walked by and walked into his office, and he goes, I'm going to need you to prepay that. He goes, but it's like 18 bucks a ticket.
Uh-huh.
Or something along. It was like 17, 18 bucks. It was more. And so I was like, all right, I got you. Yeah, I'll do it. And so again, I shelled out the cash because nobody else had any cash there or weren't willing. It was one of those things where, some people were like, I don't got any cash, but maybe they did. But I was absolutely willing to go ahead and do that. I was all about it. And everybody was cool about it. I got all my money back very quickly, very easily. So it was just one of those things that, you do what you need to do in the scene, right? And you pay your dues. So it was things like that after a while where it's like, you do those kinds of things. You work your ass off, you go on tour, and you realize we got nothing coming to us, right? And then we'd already kicked out our guitar player, and our drummer then decided to leave. I just thought, this is difficult because we were having a difficult time even replacing our guitar player.